The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Let me describe to you the consequences of allowing indifference to thrive. July 3rd, 2016. The tranquility of it all was acutely disturbing. The air was light and breezy, gently shifting the green grass, stretching across the earth as far as I could see. Bright blue sky shone through between the clouds, sending a light drizzle down to the ground, this weather not uncommon in Poland. I wanted to feel comfortable breathing in the air, but I trembled when thinking about what I was really breathing in. Puddles collected in clusters along the worn railroad ties as I walked down the cobblestone entrance to hell, the black cloud hanging over history, Auschwitz. I felt my soul constrict as I passed under the wrought iron gate bearing the words Arbeit macht frei, or work will make you free. This sadistic stamp of death, one of the first messages prisoners received when arriving at the concentration camp. I pictured thousands of Jews walking beside me, clutching their children close by and looking anywhere for hope, only to see these words scrawled above, mocking the destruction they were about to endure, or in most cases, succumb to. Despite them being safe at home in Minnesota, my mind's eye couldn't help but place my sister, father, mother, grandparents, and others in the sea of people. This wasn't just a story from a history book. The Holocaust, or Shoah, hangs over Judaism like a chronic, brooding shadow. It almost seemed like just a museum, an interactive collection of exhibits showcasing artifacts of a long-lost culture, like Judaism was erased, like the tragic history of my community was all that defined it. While walking through Auschwitz, I peered into prisoner barracks, converted into glassed-off displays of the belongings victims had left behind when their life was taken out of them. In one room was located what at first glance appeared to be a sea of metal spiders tangled together, but as I got closer, I was able to discern that they were actually thousands of wire-rimmed glasses piled on top of each other, their gray mass having been of no use to their owners for 75 years. In another room, I smelled the musty scent of aged leather, which I realized after turning the corner was a mountain of leather shoes, their soft soles seeming to stretch down the corridor forever, worn by use and time. And a final chamber contained countless Jewish prayer shawls, or talitot, draped together behind sterile glass barriers. Their threads had witnessed so much, the blue stripes and delicate tassels hopelessly tangled and contorted. What must have looked like to an outsider so many relics of a forgotten people, their fire seemingly extinguished, and their faces supposedly lost to the waves of time. Past the rubble of long-gone gas chambers and crematoria stood a final barrack, in it containing a book. Thousands of person-sized pages long, the spine was the wall, and on each page was written in tiny font hundreds of names of Holocaust victims, along with details of their life. My hands went on autopilot, and I soon found myself frenziedly flipping through pages of the tome. A, B, C, C-A, C-O-G, C-O-H-A, C-O-H-E-N, Cohen, comma, Anna, Cohen, comma, Eli, Cohen, comma, Eva, Cohen, comma, Ezra. My heartbeat echoed in my ears and a white noise blurred my thoughts. Cohen, comma, Ezra, France, murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau, Poland. The next line, Cohen, comma, Ezra, 1930, Benghazi, Libya, place of death, unknown. I continued searching, looking for answers I knew would pierce through my heart. Cohen, comma, Libby, Felzagorzany, Hungary, place of death, unknown. Cohen, comma, Anthony, 29/9/1923, and Shed, the Netherlands, murdered in Auschwitz. This could have been my family. For many of my Jewish friends and other community members, this was their family. How does one process an entire generation gone up in flames, scattered like grains of sand in an ocean or dust on the surface of the earth? For me and others, fortification and community provides a refuge to reconcile the modern state of Jews with the horrors of history we've endured. In sharp contrast to the solemn pall enveloping Auschwitz, most every Friday night for my entire life, I've happily whispered the words Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat under my breath and gazed at Shabbat candles lit before me. Every Friday night, my grandparents, mom, dad, sister, and I crowd into the dining room and take our seats, smiles and raucous laughter sometimes having to be suppressed in order to recite the proper blessings. My Zaidi leads us in a rousing Shalom Aleichem and then blesses the wine. I grip the worn wooden hilt of the knife we've used to cut the challah for so many years, and as we say the blessing over it, I cut pieces of the bread one by one, tossing a piece to each of my family members gathered around the granite tabletop. Every Friday night, the Jewish celebration of Shabbat, of family, of our religious values and our history is what defines me, is what I engage in. For me, in studying the Shoah, I choose to continue engaging in Judaism not because of the community that perished during the past. I choose to immerse myself in Judaism because of the morals that I gained from the Jewish community during the present and the importance of protecting them for the future. I actively concern myself with building and growing from my community not because of the Holocaust, but in spite of it. Every Saturday morning, I attend synagogue and tutor Jewish boys and girls in preparation for their bar and bat mitzvahs, in the process helping ensure that the cultural destruction sought within the recent memory of Jews worldwide is never realized. It takes an active role in one's community to advance your values, traditions, ethics, morals, and practices onto the next generation. A passive role only opens the door to naive prejudice and ignorance that breeds hate. On the holiday of Passover, there is a metaphor used to describe how the spread of kindness can be derailed by passivity and ignorance. Every generation contains echad she'eno yodei lishol, or one that does not know enough to ask. As a child, the one that does not know enough to ask has no memories of any virtuous role models, looks up to those with bad intentions, and only encounters passivity in their parents and others meant to raise them, creating the potential for them to be effectively sent down a path of hate without them even knowing an alternative. As a child, they don't even know that their actions are wrong. I have cause to be fearful for our country today. Somebody didn't think to reach out to and help an innocent child who didn't know enough to ask, and then that child grew up, was only acted upon by others who were also not steered to the path of kindness, and then found friendship and commonality with countless others who hadn't known enough to ask, marching in Charlottesville, chanting, "Jews will not replace us." How many individuals made up a crowd of that size? Now, how many people in each of those individuals' lives consciously allowed them to be lost to needless prejudice and hate? Just recently, I couldn't help but think back to seeing my name written down in the book in Auschwitz, when I learned in the news about a Jewish boy just 1 year older than I, who was murdered in California in January by a neo-Nazi. But I know that at one point the murderer simply didn't know enough to ask, and no one thought to help him. In order to prevent bias from going into hate, we need to identify the child who does not know enough to ask while they are still small. This falls on each and every one of us. It needs to start on the most basic day-to-day level. When one of your friends makes a racist comment, even if they claim they're joking, it is your responsibility to help them learn why that's not okay. If your friend says something to you bordering on sexist, know that it's a seed that you're either actively allowing to grow or deciding to stop before it can. And when somebody at my lunch table makes a joke regarding stereotypes about Judaism, but then claims they're not anti-Semitic, I will teach them why their intention doesn't matter, that the only message they're truly giving to those listening is that ideas of contempt and disrespect should be normalized. You are leading someone who does not know enough to ask astray. Everyone in this room has the responsibility to teach others why ideas sowing the seeds of hate are below a standard of respect suitable for anyone. To think that the hatred capable of producing events such as the Holocaust is a thing of the past is foolish. But if we know to help people that don't know enough to ask before they're led to hate, I'm confident that the future we produce will be much brighter than the atrocities of the past. In the words of my friend Eva Gross, loving grandmother, world traveler, book club enthusiast, dedicated cook, and survivor of 6 concentration camps, including Auschwitz, hate is a terrible thing, but no one is born with hate in their heart. If someone who has experienced as much terror as her can persist and spread messages of positivity, I'm sure that together we can all work to overcome the hate present in our country today.